I'm Marjorie Kadi, and this is 50 Plus. Folks, we're doing a turnaround today. Normally at the end of the show, and you may not even pay attention, we list the people who work on our camera, who direct for us, who work on audio, all those different tasks that makes making a TV production fun. Fun for us to make it, but we have to have those people out there. Normally you just see my face just, looking at you here, but there's so many other people that are involved. And I'd like to take this occasion now to, instead of the credits at the end, to thank all the people who come here. We're all volunteers, and you people out there could be volunteers too and be part of the fun. But golly, I mean today, and it's always different because now most of us are retired and we have our own fun doing things when we want to do. But today we've got a lot of our old regulars there. We've got Ed Waddell on camera, our former merchant marine man, a very marvelous, marvelous craftsman. We have Ellen Kelly, one of the telephone pioneers, who volunteers for them, is very active with them, an officer, and she turns up all the time. We got Marilyn in the control room doing technical work. Folks, they're just folks like you and me. Brian here, a young man who enjoys being with us old fogies. Ted Kozarski, of course, is my producer. I'm called an executive producer, and somebody asked me the other day what that means, and I says, it means I get to be on camera and my producer does all the work. So there's Ted there. Of course, our director, Dorian Godoy. Kevin we've got on sound usually. And we usually have you on a camera or floor managing or doing something, and it's wonderful. But today is the last day for one of our volunteers who's moving away, and she has been so wonderful. Her specialty is graphics. Diane Gabay, come on up here. Diane is not only wonderful with graphics, she's the one who puts up all those names. We are going to miss her so much. She's been helpful not only to us, but to other shows. And I know everybody here at CTV really appreciates it. This is something you just do.
Well, it's been a wonderful experience for me.
And she's been a marvelous art teacher. Several of us here have been in her sculpture class. It's been wonderful. We produce these incredible murals at Cromwell Center and Cassidy Coles. You've been an inspiration. You've been a help. And I can't thank you enough.
I invite everybody to come to Richmond to visit me.
Not only that, folks, she broke her ankle around Christmas time wasn't
October.
it? And she came in here with a cast on her leg and was working for us. Again, thanks so much. And thanks to all of you little folks out there. Bob, it is a delight to me. We are both former teachers, and teaching dies hard. It's like a sickness. You can't give up the audience, can you?
Like MacArthur said, paraphrasing, the old teachers never die, they just fade away. But we're still here, you and I. We're very much still here.
To me, it has been such a blessing. I always got so much from the students I worked with. They turned me on all the time. You walk out there and sometimes it's one, sometimes it's two, sometimes it's a whole class, if you're lucky, and their questions, their challenges, you never stop learning. And that's what I love about CTV. There's always something to do.
Very true, very true. I learned more, I'm sure, infinitely more from the students I had for over 30 years span than they did from me. And I tip my hat to them because I did learn a lot just by being with them. And I know exactly what you're trying to say. And I've learned a lot here. You say you can't teach an old dog new tricks. It's not true. No one knows it better than me. Like the young lady that just left the stage, I learned a lot just by her letting me look over her shoulder.
It's such a wonderful opportunity. I just wonder why more people don't take advantage of it. But The thing that should not surprise me is the fact that we can learn new things. I mean, when you consider what happened during World War II, housewives suddenly went to work in factories.
Right.
You never know what you can do. And wouldn't it be a shame if you died having never been anything more than a telephone operator or household manager, or whatever you want to call it, or whatnot. You are a case in point, because you're somebody who responded to the challenges of World War II, and I understand that you were very skilled in a air factory, a Grumman Air Factory on Long Island.
I was working on the P-47 Thunderbolt fighter aircraft in Farmingdale, Long Island. Republic Aircraft was the firm. And of course I was on a night shift. That's what they did with the young guys, you know, put us on a night shift. 12 hours at night, 12 hours in the daytime. And make a long story as short as possible, because I was a certified, qualified aircraft mechanic as a result of working there, naturally I was put into the infantry.
Well, of course. I mean, this is a typical government kind of allocation.
Par for the course.
But I have heard your story as a World War II veteran, and absolutely incredible. You know, if you can imagine during a war situation, many people who have never been out of their hometown, home state, suddenly find themselves in another country in a life and death situation, and we adjust. And you think you can't run a machine at CTV? Whatever. Your story is fascinating about, you fought your way through Normandy, did you not?
Yeah, well, myself and about 10 million others. No, our division was scheduled for D-Day +3. Omaha Beach is where we came ashore. And by this time, the D-Day and D-Day +1 and 2 had managed to move about 3 or 4 miles inland. And the Germans were kind of stalemated because Hitler wouldn't let von Rundstedt commit his tanks and reserves. But we finally caught up with the main body that had come ashore before us and teamed up with them and began...
You must have seen utter mayhem.
Yeah.
From...
It was a slow, steady push, but they weren't going to give ground easily, and it was an absolute horror to behold, because the beach was still a mess, and not all the pillboxes had been secured, and the Germans were not going to give up. As a matter of fact, they made, about a day after we got there, they made a serious effort to push all of us back into the English Channel. And we felt we were going to do like the British had at Dunkirk all over again. But we prevailed, and we managed to continue pushing slowly but steady, and they contested every square foot of ground. And you've heard the story of the hedgerow country, and finally we got to St. Lo and broke out of the hedgerow country, and then it was, you know, it's conventional war, whatever that means, and the infantry's job is to take the territory away from the other guy, hold on to it, and not let him take it back. And that's pretty much what we were doing until the Battle of the Bulge, and everything changed.
And then how did it become non-conventional?
Well, they must have heard in the German High Command, or in the Reichstag or something, that December 25th was my birthday. So they started their counteroffensive in the Ardennes to coincide, or just to precede, about December the 10th, they made their move. By the time we came down from a rest area to join the fray, it was almost December the 14th, 12th actually. And we're trying to celebrate, a pretext of celebrating Christmas, Hanukkah, birthday. In the middle of all this, there was a lot of noise going on. And the entire German army is trying to crash my birthday party. I mean, it's my birthday party. And we had a little sign that we put up, was pitiful, happy, Merry Christmas to all GIs. And of course we, you know, just a few feet away from the anti-tank gun, never very far away from your weapon. And it was really, if it wasn't so pathetic, it would have been funny. But this is how I celebrated my 21st birthday, Marge, in the middle of all hell breaking loose. That's how I remember my birthday, by the way.
Well, with a few other notables that were born in and around the same time.
Well, I know I was in good company, yes, yes.
What incredible story. And you come back and go into teaching. But I know that over and beyond all that, you have always had in your heart a desire, I think as all teachers, any good teacher does, a sort of, I won't say messianic, because too appropriate to the Christmas, no. But this desire to see things get better. You can't work with kids unless you believe that things can get better. You can't be a cynic.
You have to
if you are, you're a rotten teacher.
You have to know that you can make a difference. You have to know that.
And that, I think, has been a main concern of you all your life. Teaching has been one aspect of it. Risking your life in a war has been another aspect of it. Tell us a little bit about the activism that keeps somebody like you so wonderfully alive and vibrant.
Well, flattery will get you anything about, but no, ever since we...
He brings great refreshments, too.
Ever since my wife and I got to Staten Island, this was back about 1963, so we're kind of newcomers, and we landed in a high-rise, one of the few high-rise apartment houses on Staten Island. We couldn't manage to get all the way up to the 18th floor. We had to settle for the 14th floor, and I noticed that one view overlooked Silver Lake Park and the golf course and all of that side of Staten Island. The other set of windows overlooks the Verrazano Bridge. I said, this is great. I'm going to get involved with this because I don't want anybody messing around with my park.
Your view.
This is immediately my park and my reservoir in the middle of the park, Silver Lake Reservoir. So I became active with the, matter of fact, organized the Silver Lake Civic League, which is still in existence today. It's a civic association. I'm not as active in it as I used to be, and I also jumped in with both feet with the community board, and was on the community board for 8 years and was chair of the community board for a couple of those 8 years. And there we felt that, too, we were making a difference. We were trying to get good things done, the right things done, and to stave off things that we thought were wrong or bad or harmful, which is what a community board is supposed to do. And I've been involved continuously, you know, I just love every minute of it with the civic association activity, the public hearing, the community board, everything.
And it's such a temptation to sit back on our rears and blame the government, blame the politicians, blame the other guy, but not get out and do something about it. And that's something that you have done. What were some of the causes that you had?
Well, first thing, the first big battle we lost. I wasn't used to losing battles, either in peacetime or wartime. So that was a bit uphill, but the Board of Water Supply, as it was called at that time, decided they wanted to replace the reservoir with underground water storage tanks. And we had a $500 million reservoir.
A beautiful reservoir.
Well, that was done years ago. What they did was we need more elevation so we can get more pressure on the water. So they put two 50-million-gallon tanks underground.
50 million gallons?
50 million gallons, replacing a 500 million gallon reservoir, which is fine. There's enough water for everybody, I hope. And they put the park back on top of the tanks. We tried to, our darndest, to stop them from ripping up the park and taking down 900 trees, but they prevailed. We went through the whole legal process and everything, but we lost. And the park was put back on top of the tanks, and most people who weren't here at the time don't even realize that there are these enormous water underground reservoir under the park.
I never know it. That's incredible.
The reservoir's still there, but it's aesthetically, it's beautiful, and it's really for recreational purposes.
And you know, so many people years ago used to come over and take that wonderful ferry ride and go to Silver Lakes Park. I've lived near Central Park for many years, And I am absolutely delighted with Silver Lakes. It's delightful, it's charming, it's everything you could ask for an outing. And it's a shame people don't take more advantage of it now.
Yes. We used to come out when we were kids in Bay Ridge. I lived on 86th Street, the corner of Narrows Avenue, for all you Brooklynites. And I can see the roof of that house from my apartment now. But we used to go down to 69th Street Ferry, nickel for you and the bike included, and come over to St. George, and like you said, spend a day bicycling around Silver Lake Park, La Tourette, just everywheres on our bikes. And when it started to get dark, go back to the ferry, go back to 69th Street, and home for another nickel. And this is how we spent our childhood. We made many, many pleasant trips that way. Of course, you know, the 69th Street Ferry was taken out pretty soon after the Verrazano was opened, but it would, well, this is nostalgia, but I think it would be a wonderful thing if we could have that ferry back on duty again, only this time it could be for the commuters to go from 69th Street to Bay Ridge, to Manhattan, to Wall Street. Because the trend is now back toward water transportation, that we've come full circle.
Well, thinking of, in terms of nostalgia, in a sense, coming out to Staten Island, I don't know if I should let the other boroughs know about this, but as far as I'm concerned, it is the untold secret that here you can find rural, beautiful things, you can find modern communities, you can find Victorian, and the prices are right. And you're, what, 20 minutes from Manhattan? But I think one of the things that concerns you, because you came to CTV initially because you were on Speaker's Corner.
Yes.
Which is a wonderful opportunity.
I went on there the first time on a dare, and I got hooked, Marge, and I just keep coming back again and again and again.
Well, I know you're concerned about keeping housing available. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your current thought? This show may air after it's a settled issue, but I think it's something we have to keep in mind constantly and be on the alert. Tell us a little.
Okay, I'll try not to get up on my soapbox, but it's my feeling as a typical tenant. I'm a veteran, I'm a senior, I'm on a fixed income. My wife and I live on our pension and Social Security, like thousands and thousands of other people. We're in a rent-stabilized building. Right up the block, there are rent-controlled building. And we're all in the same boat. I know that Majority Leader Bruno up in Albany threw down the gauntlet quite some time ago that he wanted to do away with rent regulation. They've backed off from that. Governor Pataki has backed off, Senator D'Amato has backed off, and Giuliani, our mayor, has jumped in and is at least paying lip service to the idea of continuing rent regulation. Unfortunately, Mr. Giuliani has very little to say about this, as does the City Council, because the state will make the final decision about whether we have the controls after June 15th or not. And you're right, you and I will know June 15th whether rent regulation is going to be emasculated or not.
What would it mean to you? People always, you know, we get generalities, and I certainly don't want to ask about your personal income, but I'm going to anyway, not your income, no. But what would it mean in terms of your rent? Would your rent increase slightly, double, stay fixed, what?
Well,
as it looks now.
Hypothetically, which is the best I can do, I'm thinking of the Boston example, the analogy, where they had 25,000 rent-controlled units compared to 1.2 million in the city, and we have 2.75 million people living in these 1.2 units. So it's really apples and oranges, but the Boston experiment yielded some interesting results. I've been doing a little research on this for my own edification. The rents increased there almost immediately from as little as 5% to as much as 50%. By extrapolation, if I had to pay a 50% increase in my rent, I would have to move, find other housing, probably in New Jersey. because I don't mean to sound, you know, vindictive or anything, but if my city and my state were to turn their back on me, so to speak, I would have no qualms about leaving under those circumstances. I mean, what you know, what I'm trying to say is, to keep the middle class in the city, they have to have affordable housing. There's no two ways about it. Everybody agrees on that.
Well, what about the most obvious, blatant thing that jumps into everyone's mind? Can the landlords afford to continue with rent control, rent stabilized, and still do the upkeep on the building, pay their increased taxes, blah, 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 blah? I'm being the devil's advocate, because I know that's what will come to people's minds.
I know a lot of the smaller landlords, the so-called, have had some tough times. The larger the landlord or property owner or corporate owner becomes, I think the less valid is the argument about that they can't really afford to maintain their property and they'll be taken in rem and so forth and they'll have to blah, blah, blah. I think the bigger you are, the more unlikely it is that that's a valid argument. We got a mailing. Every tenant in the city of New York, I believe, Marge, got one of these in the mail a few days ago.
Touching little old lady with a shawl.
Rent Stabilization Association, that's a landlord group, and saying, no matter what happens with rent laws, seniors are safe. Marge, we're both former educators.
Put it back up again. Let's see if we can get that on camera. Now, this is the landlords who are putting this up. All seniors are safe. I want you to hear that, folks. Yeah? Okay. See, I got it there. Yeah. Right. Okay. Now, tell me why it's a bunch of baloney.
No, tell me why I'm cynical. You and I are both former educators. If you allow me to paraphrase Shakespeare,
please.
Methinks they doth protest too much. They have nothing to fear from people like myself or yourself. There have been, the Rent Guidelines Board in the city every year determines, after hearing, what percentage increase the landlords will be getting on the next renewal time. They did away with the 3-year lease a long time ago. Now you can only get a 1- or 2-year lease. There has never been a rent rollback or a rent freeze. There have always been rent increases in percentage increments. So I don't think that if you're a typical landlord, I don't think you're really hurting. I think what they're trying to do when they say free market, I think what they're trying to do is get whatever the traffic will bear, which they can only do if there are no regulations. It's like, would you or I want to hail a taxi cab in Manhattan and he has no meter in the cab? I don't think you'd want to get into a taxi when they talk about regulation.
Wonderful analogy. Did you figure that one out, Bob?
Just now. Just now.
I love it. Bob, it's so hard to try and sum up everything. We've talked about somebody who is a wonderful role model in terms of what you've done as a teacher, what you've done as a patriot, what you have done as a civic activist, and the fact that you're here at CTV. I mean, it's so wonderful.
The fact that I'm here at all, Marge.
That's the way I feel. But, you know, we started this show with the beginning of your seeds of your creativity, if you will. What we saw was a film you made with your older brother when you were 11 years old.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was so wonderful and so in the spirit of what we try to create here. Folks, at the ending, stick around for the credits. We'll probably be seeing more of the film. I just want to thank you so much, Bob, for being you and being here and being a guest today on 50
Thank
Plus.
you for making it so easy and so pleasant. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, folks, for watching 50 Plus.